What's up guys, Suris here. Today we're going to be talking about V again, because of course we are. This is apparently going to be a dating advice video, because I guess that's a thing? But before we get into that, as per usual, let's go ahead and get through the fan art for today. First, we have this one from KK, which I'll go ahead and assume is me after hearing every other apologetic argument for the 1000th time. Then we have another submission from Spooky Boy Ray, and this one is me and the Godless Iowan apparently driving a van into your... I can't get away from this song, can I? And finally, we have... Oh my. Well, if there's one thing Aura Echoes has now solidified, it's that I need to apparently pen an anime or a manga or something. That said, I do have to wonder why you guys keep making me look like I'm badass in some of these pictures, because I'm really not in real life. But I do thank you all the same. That said, let's go ahead and get right into the intro. Alright, so we're on the third episode that I'm doing dealing with Vivi, and I haven't actually felt the need to make numbered episodes for her. I don't think I ever will. That's reserved for our favorite discount Hoven. That said, apparently she's got some dating advice for all of her subscribers, and by extension, us. So, let's see what she's got to say.
Hi guys, V here. Today we are going to be talking about a very interesting subject. So recently I was going through my Facebook messages on my Sweetovivi page. If you haven't liked me on Facebook yet, be sure to go find me on there. This is an important question that I haven't talked about yet. Can a Christian marry an unbeliever?
Oh, I've already got a short answer for this. Yes. As long as you guys aren't spending your entire relationship trying to convert or deconvert each other, then I don't really see what the issue is.
Is it a sin?
Who cares?
This question is from Andrew. I was wondering if you had any advice for me about a new relationship I'm in. I'm 21, work full-time, and last week I started a relationship with a girl from work. This is my first girlfriend, so I'm still getting used to it all. The thing is, I sometimes feel guilty because she isn't a Christian. I am going to make sure that we read the Bible together regularly, and hopefully she will come to church with me. I made sure she understood that I am a committed Christian and I want to put God first in my life, and she accepted that. I really want her to know Jesus, but maybe I should have pointed her to Christ just as a friend. Do you think I should just be friends with her? Or is it okay to continue the relationship and see what happens? Keep making awesome videos. Thanks, Andrew. So this is actually a really good question.
It is, considering that dating anybody who doesn't share the same faith with you can be pretty difficult. But like I said before, as long as you don't spend your entire time trying to convert the other person to your way of thinking, which would be considered toxic in almost every other scenario, then you should be fine. That does give us a little bit of a footnote to work off of. Isn't it weird how it's somehow accepted by society for you to try to convert somebody else to your religion if you're in a relationship with them, but if you try to bend them to your will or change their thinking in any other way, we generally consider that to be a bit of toxic behavior. Like, just with anybody, if they're wrong about something and you guys have a conversation about that, they might change your mind, but it's not your job to change their mind. Hell, there's probably at least 100 things that me and Raziel disagree on, and we've pretty much just sat on agreeing to disagree on most of those things, because both of us are way too obstinate to try to convert each other to our way of thinking. Point is, there are going to be things that you guys disagree on, theology being the least of them. It should be expected that you and your partner are going to come in with different experiences and therefore different opinions. What matters is how you two handle that after the fact.
The main verse that the Bible addresses this topic in is 2 Corinthians 6:14.
Oh goody, I too enjoy having a 2,000-year-old book tell me how to live my life.
2 Corinthians 6:14. I didn't memorize the verse.
Okay, I found this on the web for 2 Corinthians.
Do not be yoked together with unbelievers, for what do righteousness and wickedness have in common? Or what fellowship can light have with darkness?
Well, shadow? I mean, let's be honest, all extremes do in fact share a center point, so light and darkness have shadow, and two sides of a coin have that awkward ridged middle that you use to make sure that you can feel out your change in your pocket. Sometimes that center point can be a point of compromise, which, oh by the way, is really important for relationships. But you're not going to talk about that, are you?
What harmony is there between Christ and Belial, basically Satan? And in this version, the topic, like the topic heading, whatever, is called Warning Against Idolatry. Now, what is idolatry? Idolatry is basically putting something before God.
Hey, Razzie, did you know there's a 2,000-year-old book that says that you're an idol?
Wait, really? I guess that's why I feel worshipped every time you touch me.
It says I'm not supposed to worship you, though.
That's gay.
Aren't you pan, though?
Yeah, but I can still call things gay. You could always ask my girlfriend.
She's mine too, though. This is getting really confusing.
Yeah, but my relationship with her is gay.
Fair enough.
Now keep that in mind. I'm not going to address it right now, but just keep that in mind. Idolatry means putting something before God. Ooh, that's pretty cool. Have you guys ever seen a yoke? Not like the egg yolk. Not that yolk. Yokes are basically these big metal, wooden, whatever contraptions that you put onto an oxen, and that keeps them going in the same direction. It basically ties them together so they can't move away, which is basically what marriage is. You're tying two people together into one. So if you get one person that's striving toward God and another that's not, and you try to put it together, it's gonna be a battle. It's much harder to pull something up as opposed to just pulling it down, because gravity is gonna take its toll.
Yeah, I get the analogy you're trying to go for, that the higher road is the one going towards God, but I'm gonna have to go ahead and disagree. Were I dating someone who was a Christian, then as long as they're not doing any harm, I wouldn't care. They can do what they want, they can go to church when they want, that's their business. It's their personal relationship with their God. I don't have a God, and I don't believe that a God exists. While I wouldn't be opposed to having that particular conversation with her, I wouldn't ever try to make myself die on the hill of her deconversion, much like I would hope that she doesn't make herself die on the hill of my conversion. But that's the thing though, when you have a relationship with somebody, sometimes the paths that you walk may end up being very different. You may have to coalesce on a middle point. As long as that middle point is something that you two agree on, and neither of you are sacrificing anything so significant so as to possibly lose a part of yourself, then that's not a problem. It's just a matter of compromise. Unless you want to be that person that puts their religion so high up in their priority list that it's their way or the highway. I get the feeling that would be your approach.
Basically, the question comes down to, what are your priorities in life? Do you value your relationship with God, or do you value your relationship with this human?
Okay, so your way of the highway would be your approach then, because you've just posited an ultimatum. Let me put it very, very simply. The human communicates back. The God typically does not. So if you value your relationship with someone who doesn't communicate back over your relationship with your fellow human beings, then you're a standard 2019 anime fan. Oh, shit, did I say that out loud? Hey, Rozzy, did you just get more anime waifu posters?
Shut up, I love Rem, okay?
Your time on this earth is really short. The most important thing you could do on this earth is have that relationship with God.
But you're only going to get a limited time on this earth with that human being versus what happens in your perceived theology, where you're going to have eternity with God. I mean, even in regular marriage vows, there's the entire clause about till death do we part. So, I'd imagine that the relationship that you're only going to get once versus the one that you're going to get for literal eternity, one of these is on a time clock and the other one's not. So, maybe spend a little more time with your life partner, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever identity they like.
So yes, it's really important to have a relationship with a person that you can live with for the rest of your life, but it's not nearly as important as a relationship with God. And if you're a serious Christian who's seeking after God and wants that relationship with God, then naturally you're going to seek out a partner who can help you in that goal.
Ah yes, only seek out people who have similar goals. This would normally be pretty good advice. Seek out someone who wants to be successful if you want to be successful. Except here you're talking about religion. And I'll be honest, the varying perspectives of religion are so wide that it might actually behoove you to date someone with a different perspective for the conversation alone. Considering that this argument could be equally used for only having people in your friend group who you agree with, that seems like the type of logic that leads to a very, very solid echo chamber very quickly. And that's just one of those things that I'm really not a big fan of. That's the reason why I have a polytheist as my co-host.
It's hard enough having a relationship with God where you constantly seek Him, but it's even harder when you don't have someone there to support you. In marriage, you want a person that's going to help you when you're getting down or you're lacking faith.
Translation, you want someone in your relationship who's going to validate you. That sounds to me like an argument that could also be used for having a partner that can enable you if you happen to have some bad habits. So yeah, no, I don't agree with this. I've had relationships where either me or the other person ended up being a yes man for the majority of it, and they turned toxic very quickly. Not exactly something that I would personally recommend.
The strongest foundation you can build a relationship on is God. All the love stems from God. So don't compromise that foundation.
And all the morals, and all the cosmos, and all the other things that you definitely can't demonstrate. Sorry, my love comes from me. It comes from my empathy. It comes from my willingness to be me in front of somebody else. My love comes from a lot of places, but as an atheist, it doesn't come from my God. Seeing as I lack one of those.
Christians and unbelievers are like oil and water. You can't mix them. And if you are mixing really well with unbelievers, that's a problem.
No, it's not. If you're a Christian and you're mixing well with people who aren't Christian, that just means that you're a functional member of society that understands the value of compromise. Not everybody has to agree with you, even on the large issues. There's 7.6 billion people and growing on this planet, and not all of them are going to agree with you, especially on theological issues.
You shouldn't be mixing well because you are supposed to be different. You're supposed to be outside of the world. You're supposed to have certain characteristics that they don't have because you're different. You're set apart.
Yes, be different. Be an individual. Be yourself. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't also be able to literally get along with other people.
And again, if you don't have that, you might want to check your relationship with God and see if it's actually there and if you're actually on fire for God. Are you actually passionate for Jesus? Wouldn't the first thing that you look for in a person is so that they'll have that relationship with God, that fire relationship with God? Wouldn't that be the most attractive thing to you?
No, it's actually probably one of the last things I would care about. I'd rather first they be a very empathetic human being, and at the very least be what I would consider a good person. For instance, there are several people that put Christ first and are really good Christians who have been charged with sexual abuse. If their relationship with a Christian God was the first thing they had in mind and everything else came second, then I could completely understand why some of this might get excused. But that's why I don't care about your theological beliefs. I care about whether or not you purposefully cause harm to the human beings around you. If you do, then I ought not associate myself with you if I can help it. There's a word for caring about what group someone associates themselves with more than the actual actions of the individual. It's called tribalism.
Because I know for sure that's the number one thing I look for, and that's the number one thing that I find attractive, is if they have that intimate relationship with God. Because I know if a guy has that, then he will have all the other things that come with it. Like it even says in the Bible, seek first the kingdom of God, and all shall be added onto you.
Yeah, historically that's not actually been demonstrated to be the case, unless you want to appeal to the no true Scotsman fallacy, where everyone who doesn't actually fit your description of a good person is somehow not a true Christian.
All the characteristics, all the good traits, selflessness, all that comes after having a relationship with God. Ask yourself, do you really love God? Love requires sacrifice, and God should be above everything else, even relationships that you have with people. Because if your relationship with God is not first, all your other relationships will suffer.
Yeah, no, that's not necessarily true. The reason that a relationship between two Christians might flourish is because they both have the same goal they're working to achieve, if both Christians are trying to become better Christians. That did not necessarily make their relationship better or worse, it just meant that they had one goal that they share. But this isn't something special to Christianity or even religion. If you and your partner happen to share a goal, then you two are going to be able to work towards that goal together very easily. At least much easier than if you two were working at crossed purposes. This doesn't somehow make Christian relationships more special, and it doesn't make them any more valid. And it most certainly doesn't mean that if somebody puts Christ first, their relationship will de facto flourish. It also doesn't mean that if somebody puts themselves first, or their partner first, that relationship will dwindle and die just because they didn't have your favorite God in place.
So I encourage you to just seek God and first build that relationship with God, and then seek out a relationship with your significant other. It is the number one thing, the most important thing that you can do on this earth. Please take it seriously, because this is really important. As a Christian, you need to do this. However, I know even after I said all this stuff, people are still going to be trying to find some sort of loophole, because relationships and love for people can be really emotionally blinding, and we tend to see what we want to see and make up excuses and loopholes.
So, wait, how in any way is that different from the relationship that you might have with your God? Couldn't you be just as emotionally blind in that relationship and have just the same proclivity towards trying to find emotional loopholes? It seems like bringing up this problem, which is a very real problem, doesn't do anything to actually support your point. It's more like it's just a brute fact that doesn't say anything in either direction. All the same problems would exist in your relationship with any given deity that exist with your relationship with a human being, including, but not limited to, the emotional blindness you just talked about.
But besides that, there are even more passages in the Bible that point to marrying an unbeliever or dating an unbeliever as being sinful. I'll quickly list off some of the passages that say that you should marry in the Lord. Also, on the quick side note, it's not all about you. You have to also consider children in the future, if you're planning to have any. If their parents are always warring against each other with their beliefs, they're going to be really confused, and they're not going to have that stable foundation to build their faith on.
And what's saying that those children need to have a faith? I'm sorry, but living vicariously through your kids is not necessarily a good thing to strive for. If they're going to have a faith, they're going to. If they're not going to have a faith, then they're not going to. That's not your decision. Moreover, the parents can actually reach a comfortable middle ground with their theistic beliefs and not be constantly warring with one another. The only reason this warring even happens in the first place, at least with Christianity and by extension Islam, is that you have such passages like that unequally yoked one that you mentioned earlier that leads to an exclusivity tradition. This exclusivity tradition that allows only the cool kids in your club to associate with you on any meaningful level. That is, as I stated earlier, a very quick way to get yourself locked into an echo chamber where differing opinions will never actually be able to sway you. You either won't be able to hear any dissenting opinions, or their voices will be drowned out by the screams and shouts of your own side.
And if you want your kids to have a good foundation on God and good relationship with God, then you need to consider how marrying an unbeliever will affect them.
It'll affect them by giving them a different perspective on life. That's not necessarily a bad thing, unless of course your goal is to indoctrinate everyone around you into the same cool club that you happen to belong to. But anyway, what did you guys think about Vivi's advice for dating? Do you think it's something that we should all follow? Should we all find only people who happen to share our theistic belief system and that's it? Or should we just find somebody who's compatible with us? Let me know in the comments section below. I'm pretty sure this could be a very interesting topic. My take, as I said earlier, is that I personally don't care. As long as somebody doesn't do harm and they're a good person, then they're okay in my book. Hopefully, I've made my position abundantly clear in the video. That all said, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave a like down below and let me know what your thoughts were in the comment section. I hope to see you guys April 27th in Dallas for the Faithless Forum, and I will see you guys tomorrow on my next upload. As always, everyone, insert end of video tagline here.